Welcome back to the Gun Collective podcast. My name is John Patton. As per freaking usual, we've got some great guests. I'm telling you guys, I'm hitting home runs left and right, and you guys get to come along with me. We've got some excellent guests this week. But first, we got to pay those bills. Shout out to Vertex, VERTX.com. Use the code TGC. Right now, I think they've got a sale going on. I don't know if it'll still be going on when you guys get this, but use that code. Just check that code all the time, TGC, and you may get yourself a pretty hefty discount. It's normally at least 15%, and it goes up and down every time there's a holiday, this, that, the other. They've got great bags, apparel, etc. Vertex is awesome. Be sure to check them out. Also, go to xssights.com. Hey, Clint, do you have iron sights on your pistols?
Do I have iron sights on my pistols? Yeah, baby.
Yeah, see, because smart men have iron sights on their pistols, and I believe you guys out there should also do that, and you should buy the good ones from XS Sights. The code is TGC. You'll save 20%, and it'll be rad. I really think you guys should check them out. They support this show, and so should you. Now, my guests are some guys that I've known for quite a while in this industry. Both of them collectively are some of the most ridiculous personalities I've ever dealt with, and also some of the smartest. I've got Dave Warner from Next Level Armament and Clint Walker from which company are we representing here, Clint?
We'll just say Unicorn Media.
Unicorn Media. Clint has his hands in like 8,000 things. It's awesome. Guys, how are you doing tonight?
Good, man.
Lovely.
Yeah,
we're doing great.
We're doing good. It's very casual. I think one of the things that we really need to talk about, and part of the reason you guys are here, is the sort of catastrophe that is the gun industry at all times. Can you guys call out in quick fashion? We'll start with Dave on this one. Like the top 3 biggest issues with the gun industry as a whole.
I mean, as far as just culture-wise, you got the cannibalism between each other and tearing each other apart. It's always disheartening when you see guys jump into a forum and ask a question, right? So the first time they've asked something, how many people actually answer that question versus how many people shit all over their face and tell them how fucking stupid they are, right? I mean, it's legitimate questions like our left-hand eject AR-10. Somebody was asking a question the other day, and every single comment was destroying those people.
Wow.
I mean, people just asking questions like, "Hey, I'm getting a 5.56. What should I get?" You know, people like us 3 would go, "What are you going to do with it? What's the application?" You know,
Right.
And everybody else just shoves shit down their throat that they own. You know,
Buy a PSA. Brr. Yeah.
Yep. Too poor. Yeah, I mean, and I get it. You know, it's fun, but I mean, just bringing people in the industry and helping the industry grow, I think is a big problem right now where, you know, you get into other stuff and people really enjoy helping you. And, you know, some of the other projects I work on in other industries, you know, I always look at things, especially from a manufacturing standpoint, where I'm going to help the consumer get a better product working with a competitor, right? Like I can help cut costs, increase quality, do some of these things that we need working with the other companies. So it's not only on the consumer level, it tends to be on the higher level in a lot of these companies where they're like, well, I'm not going to talk to that guy because he does the same thing I do, but we don't really do the same thing. Right.
So really the issue there just seems to be that people are dickheads.
I mean,
if to summarize, that's what it sounds like. Would you agree?
Yeah. I mean, I
guess. Okay. Clint, do you have anything that comes to mind when you think about the issues with the gun industry at large?
For sure. I mean, you know, Dave, you know, really hits it on the head. You know, as a manufacturer, cannibalism, copycatting, that sort of thing. There's two forms, right? We cannibalize the people that are, you know, in this industry, trying to break into this industry, trying to ask questions about, you know, firearm ownership, responsible firearm ownership, et cetera. And then you have, you know, copycats, you know, people that just want to do me too. It's difficult not to get diluted by new people in the space. And I mean, let's face it, Dave and I both played in the in the side of the space that, you know, it tends to get the most copied, which is the AR-15. And by the way, I copied Eugene Stoner's design, so you know I'm that guy too, right?
Sure.
But what's more than that, John, is, you know, we happen to work in an industry whereby we pay the government to put us out of business. I don't think people actually understand the challenges of manufacturing firearms.
Okay, so for the people that may be listening and don't understand,
Yeah,
can you talk about what the hell an excise tax is and how
sure.
we are paying to put ourselves out?
Sure. So, you know, excise tax now we literally could get a form together of 10 different manufacturers and you get 10 different answers as to how they treat excise tax.
Oh,
Okay.
really? Wow.
Oh yeah, it's very loose because like a lot of things, tax related, firearm regulation related, they're intentionally gray. But you know, just from a let's say 50,000 foot level, it's a 10% tax of of the wholesale of a finished good in that space. Okay. Now, there's some people that will say it's 10% of the total wholesale value of a firearm that's made, right? But in essence, they're, you know, if you're making a component like a complete bullet, for example, you know, the primer, the powder, the case, the projectile, that's a finished good and therefore falls under the same guidelines as excise tax, as a finished good. So, you know, this is where, by the way, that gets passed right on to the consumer. So if I'm manufacturing a firearm, an AR-15, let's say, and my done wholesale base level cost is $1,000. Well, now it's $1,100 because I got to pay that extra money to the government. And by the way, I'm going to pass that on to the consumer. Every manufacturer does the same thing. That's where, you know, taxes go. Government takes that and they can say that they don't, but they turn around and turn that into, you know, funding to create legislation to drive us out of business. And it's a very tough thing to navigate for us because, as you know, we've had quite a shakeup on the pro 2A organizations that help defend our customer base and us as manufacturers, right? With the NRA, you know, going through a overdue and needed reorganization, and then you've got these up and coming organizations that have really been able to step up and you know speak on behalf of the pro Constitution, pro 2A movement.
Right.
Difficulty comes in that, you know, here we are coming off of Dave, what would you say? Probably one of the worst years that we've had as manufacturers. It's been tough.
100%.
Yeah.
Funding those guys, profitability, and your pocketbook to be able to write those checks to these organizations are just getting smaller and smaller for each company.
Absolutely. So, and as you know, I mean, guys, anyone listening to this podcast, I mean, every time you turn around, I thought I just wrote a check to this organization, and now they're asking me for another $20 for this or $20 for that, and so on. And by the way, those needs are real. They're real needs. Okay. But unfortunately, as you're trying to navigate, you know, increasing cost of goods, right, and you know, increasing wages, gas prices going, all these different things that affect us as manufacturers. We're also trying to spin plates, so to speak, and say, well, I want to support Gun Owners of America, and I want to support this organization over here, but I can't do anything wholeheartedly for all of them. So I find that to be a challenge, right? And for me, guys, listen, that's no secret. In the past with my companies, I've been a big proponent of supporting the NRA, and I've had long discussions, late night discussions with guys like John and Eric and some of these guys that, you know, are like, dude, you know, wake up, you know, this is what's going on.
The audience that's listening, hopefully they've heard. We had second VP Mark Vaughn on this show not that long ago to discuss the issues with the NRA. we had a whole long. I mean, I held his feet to the fire about it, and hopefully the people out there got a chance to listen to that. So they've been exposed to that for sure.
Oh, good, good. And look, like I said, much needed reorganization, a lot of changes happening, whatever. But it's important for us to remember that there's good men and women in that organization still. Okay, so just as we say we can't allow the actions of one officer to say that all officers are bad, we also have to look at that effectively the same way with some of these pro gun organizations. So that being said, I made a big commitment to support the NRA early in my career. And for those of you who don't know, I've been doing this for a minute, 13, 14 years. And, it's tough. It's tough to navigate. It's tough to keep current with who's who. And it's tough to support something in perpetuity. And that's a really important thing as we get into our discussion today about Tuborg coin and why we created it as a mechanism in part to support these pro Constitution, pro gun organizations in
Sure.
perpetuity.
So I think we need to take a step back before we dive too deep into that portion of it, because when I think of the struggles that we face as an industry and the sort of weight that's being pressed down on us of opposition, this weight that we all have to carry collectively. I often wonder if some of our cohorts are almost pulling that down. Do you guys, from a manufacturer standpoint, see that? Do you feel like people are joining in and being like, well, fuck it, I will just comply and deal with that sort of thing? Do you see that?
One of the big things that we've seen, like, not only was this a very, very rough year, we were super fortunate because all the little pieces, parts, upgrades, that kind of stuff we make for the platform. But full guns, sales were terrible. And then you had the export laws change and all that stuff change, right? And then you had basically a cycle. So if you take a cycle of these companies that say a third of their business is exporting, right? And you take that cycle and you bump that 90 days and then 180 days. That's their whole term cycle of all their manufacturers that are producing the parts. That's why this past year you've seen so many companies go out of business because they pulled the rug on that. And then they kind of re-engaged it and went back and forth. You're talking 180 days of no sales on a 30-year business, right? That completely crushed these companies and their suppliers, right? Their suppliers, when you talked about people not getting paid and that stuff happening, they're getting crushed because they're not getting paid at the top level, right?
Right.
So yeah, we've seen a lot of that as a white box manufacturer, especially, other companies need just, 3 of the widgets we make to be able to produce their units, no matter what they are. And when that happened with the export, it affected a lot of the industry as well. So it's not just the domestic sales. It seems very strategic to me how things have unfolded under the past administration, to the point of, like you said, by design, right? Like this was a plan, and a ton of these companies folded. You guys seen, what was it? Every month or so, just a mainline standard household name folded up.
Mm-hmm.
As part of me thinks that it's healthy for us to have that sort of normalization, if you could call it that. I don't know what else to call it, but I almost I think a lot of those companies earn the going out of business, but the regulatory side is certainly something that just loves to fuck people.
Yeah.
The government loves to change stuff and go, oh well, now your whole business is changing because we on a whim decided something different.
Yeah.
What do you think about that, Clint?
So, I agree actually with both of you on that. So I have this saying, sales hide sins, right?
Yes, it does.
When things are going really good, man, like your company can be completely fucking sideways internally, right? Your books are a mess. You're scrapping parts left and right, all these different things. And it's only when sales start to shrink that it's like it creates this magnifying glass that you then see everything myopically through, right? Now you're looking at things a lot closer. Dave, you know this, right? Because in our machine shops, we have to go find where those dollars and cents are that we can pick up off the shop floor, literally, right? That could be our tuning the programming for that part. Can we make it faster? Can we make it more efficient? Can we have someone sit and deburr as they're pulling that part off the machine versus sending it back to a department to deburr? All these numerous things. But I don't want to say that this regulation and the things that have unfolded and run companies out of business is solely because of that. At the end of the day, it just hyper accentuated problems that they already had.
Sure.
And John, I believe the same thing as you. I believe that type of attrition, that type of competition is a good thing. Because again, in the AR space, for years, I had people coming out and copycatting, and I just say, look, those people are working out of their garage or whatever, which is where I started, by the way. So I like that guy, right? I'm a champion of that guy. But if they can't make it, I'm not going to miss them when they're gone. And that's, in part, one of the reasons that we collaborate, right? You get some of the guys that put the ego aside and say, hey, I'm going to call my buddy Dave over here. He makes the same thing as me. He goes to a rival high school, right? But I'm going to call on him and say, hey, let's get together on this project or that. And it really takes, some maturity from our industry to be able to do those sort of things.
It also takes swallowing one's own ego.
Yeah.
And I think that is one of the most difficult things for people in our industry. It's a lot of type A's or supposed type A's, I'll say, people that love to think they are type A, and they lead with their ego, and that causes a whole shitload of cascading issues. But we could spend like 8 hours talking shit on how stupid people are in the gun industry. I see it all the time with marketing departments left and right, and I go, how the fuck are you people still here? How do you the products are rough? For example, a very, very, very prestigious 2011 company, specifically 2011, named Staccato. They make ammunition now, and it's garbage. We tried to run it through several guns today, and the only one that would run it is a gun that has had thousands and thousands of rounds through it. And all I could think was, how the fuck did this get out of that place? Wow. How do you make ammunition that won't feed? How do you get to a point? That's the question I continually ask. And what I see is these like pockets of greatness throughout the industry, and guys that fucking get it, right? That start to understand, wait, we can do this differently. We don't have to abide by these rules of the past, right? We no longer have to go, well, this is how it's done, and that's just how we do it, with no explanation, right? I think that's what's going to change the way the gun industry does things. And with that in mind, you guys are working on a project that I have some involvement in currently. I want that to be very clear. I do have some involvement in this. There is a project going on, and Dave, can you explain the name?
Tubor. So I live in Michigan, and it's right on our flag, and it means I will defend, even though we are not doing a very good job of that here in Michigan.
No, you are not. No,
yeah,
you guys are shitting the bed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's terrible. But that's where the name came from.
So what is this? As like high level, what is it?
I mean, how nerdy do you want me to get? Do you want me to get into
be as
my background in the space that got us to the start of this?
So let's start with you're explaining this to a 5-year-old. Let's start there, and then we'll start peeling the onion. So what is Tubor? What is it at its highest level?
It is a cryptocurrency project for the firearms industry, designed to solve many of the issues we deal with. One of the big things we didn't bring up is demonetization as well. That's probably 90% of us have ran into that issue at some time or another, right, Clint? I mean, it's always brutal, right? You have a credit card processor that all of a sudden gets bought by a liberal company, and they just hold on to your money for as long as they want to. And I'm not talking little dollars.
Hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah, they go, okay, we're done with you. And you're like, oh, cool, send me my check. And they're like, okay. And you just keep making that phone call. And
can I cite a specific example,
please,
Dave, just to paint that picture, and John, more clearly? Guys, so imagine that you're, firearm manufacturer, you started out of your garage, whatever the case is, but you've scaled and you've managed to survive, and you've managed to survive even despite the copycats, despite the regulation, despite the failing economy, and all those things. Okay. And you come in to work one day and your controller or CFO says, hey, boss, we've been cut off. What do you mean we've been cut off? We don't have any access to our banks right now, our bank account. Huh? And the bank that you've been banking with for years just decided on a Wednesday or a Tuesday, we're shutting your account. We're freezing your account right now. You can't have any money coming in, and you can't have any going out. And
that's
to
terrifying.
The tune of,
That's terrifying.
It's terrifying. It's actually, when we think about government overreach and all those, it's the pinnacle of that, which by the way, it shouldn't be lost on anyone listening to this. You're not going to be controlled through, the seizing of this and the seizing of, your firearm, your this, coming and kicking in your door and whatever. They're going to seize your bank account. Because when you seize your bank account, you can't feed your family. You can't keep your lights on. You can't go buy groceries. You can't do any of those simple things that we take for granted. We saw it happen in Canada. We saw that happening to those truck drivers, right? They said, we're starting to seize those guys' bank accounts. Fuck you, Trudeau, right? He's got everything coming to him. Sorry. I swore I wasn't going to get all excited and start cussing, because Dave hates it when I cuss. But
I love it.
I'm pretty sure Dave said something about shitting on people within the first 5 minutes.
So what I'm saying, though, is that this actually happened to me. It's happened to me twice in this industry. I'm not going to name banks or anything like that, but it's happened twice where it was like, oh shit, what do we do? And we're frantically contacting the bank and saying, what happened? And you know what they tell you? Well, you're selling firearms. And we just realized it after 3 years. and that's honestly what's happened. Okay.
I love it. I love that is usually like, oh, we randomly found it when the name of the company is like blah 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 firearms.
Oh, dude,
like, you dumb fucks.
Yeah, you just figured that out. Which, by the way, we're an actual bona fide manufacturer. We're doing these things all above board legally. We have what's called a federal firearms license, and we sell to licensed dealers, right? We're not just going on Instagram and posting something and saying, come to my house and I'll sell it to you out of my garage. It's ridiculous how people, anti-gun people, think our business runs. But one of the controls, a big control, the ultimate control, could be argued, is the seizing of our bank account, the demonetization, as Dave talks about. So, yes, it's happened to me. It's happened to Dave. It's happened to people that are involved in this project. Dave, I digress. I'll let you take it from here. Sorry to go on that rant.
Oh, you're good, man.
That was helpful.
You know how I feel. I mean, it finally got to a point where I told the gentleman I was on the next flight to New York and had his office address, and I was going to come meet him the next day. And miraculously, I had my money. So, I mean, it's absolutely insane.
Yeah.
So, fast forward to everything we've been through, like you said, the Canadian things, the COVID things, the shutdown things. It's been absolutely insane. So I have been in the cryptocurrency space for quite some time. Everybody thought I was, batshit crazy back when I spent, a little bit of money on a couple graphics cards. And my son and I, he was 12 years old at the time, we sat downstairs in the basement and we figured out how to mine space money, right? Woohoo. We woke up the next day and we had some Ethereum at $5.16. We were absolutely thrilled. And then I said, cool, let's buy some more graphics cards and do some more. So we got that all up and running. And then I do a very good job of finding people that are smarter than myself and occupy. I had a friend of mine, I would call out his name, but he's a fighter pilot that is an absolute genius. And he helped us develop some 7-card rigs and maximize our profitability with the power draw and all that fun stuff. So I built up, I think, about $70,000 worth of graphics cards in the lobby at my manufacturing facility. And then
you realize how freaking absurd that sounds, right?
Yeah, I mean, and nobody knew what it was. They were just like, what is Rain Man doing in the lobby of his office at 3 in the morning?
Definitely mining.
Yeah, I'll come clean here. In the midst of this, Dave calls me and he's like, dude, I'm mining crypto. You know, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about, Dave. I'm mining what?
Who is crypto and what are you doing?
And he's like, dude, look, I'm telling you, the more of these things that we buy and set up, the more we mine and get. And he was going to rent this facility there and like do this big push. He's like, hey, I want you to get in on this thing. And I love Dave, right? Like Dave and I, you know, we're people, right? Like we go back because we got screwed by the same person one time. And it really brought us together.
Blood brothers.
And this is what I love about Dave. Like I'm fucking focusing on, you know, making another quarter MOA accurate rifle, doing all this shit in my myopic space. Dave's fucking making hot sauce and fucking, you know, he's got his crypto mining business and, you know, all these different things. And I'm like, he is the epitome of a serial entrepreneur, which I used to think I was, right? But on that one, I was like, Dave, like, sounds like you're building a bunch of open box Atari systems over there. I'm just not into that. But go ahead, Dave. I'll just keep adding color. I'm going to be your I'm going to be your hype man for this whole fucking session, bro.
You're not wrong. It was pretty crazy. So I ended up raising some capital with some friends of mine and building out that facility. I think our electric bill was like $45,000 one month. I mean, we brought in like 3,000 graphics cards and just racks and racks and racks. And it was like 110 degrees average temperature up there. So we would go up there and we had a couple of guys that started in the fund with us that were actually very intelligent attorneys that are also super ADD crazy guys like me. So they would go up there and they would help work. They wanted to put the rigs together and do the work. And one of them always had this big gold chain, this Italian guy. And
wait, you're telling me an Italian guy wearing a gold
chain?
Yeah,
right. That's
unheard of.
That you could see. I can actually just in his sweaty the chest hair rubbing against it as he's telling this. Yeah.
So keep in mind the tribes pay no electric bill here in Michigan in 2 different facilities, right? So they find out what I'm doing and they're like, holy shit, we're going to print money. Can you help us get a set up with this? I said, I'll bring you over there, but it's going to be hot. So I bring the tribe in and they're all in their suits and dressed all nice in their nice cars. And they walk up and there's 4 dudes in their underwear and their leather loafers and their gold chains walking around. I was like, yeah, you guys will have that in this industry. It's completely fine. This is all
it's fine.
normal.
It's normal. It's fine.
You can buy, you can actually download videos of that on cryptopornhub.com.
Don't go there. Don't go to that website. I don't know if it exists.
I bet it's real as shit.
I better fucking reserve that one.
Yeah. You better book that one. That's almost as good as Lemon Party, right, Clay? Don't go to that one either.
Not doing it.
Oh God, don't do that. Don't tell your kids about it. Sorry.
So what we did for the investors is we wrote a smart contract, right? So this is basically
hold on. You're mining,
yes,
and you're creating global warming in a building.
All of it.
All of the global warming, you have created it. You are solely responsible for the ice caps melting.
Yeah.
100%.
Did you even buy any carbon credits to offset your footprint? You selfish son of a bitch.
Son of a bitch.
Yeah.
All right. So how do you go from mining Ethereum, which is a cryptocurrency? How do you
Correct.
go from that fucking crazy fantasy world to the rest of us to creating your own cryptocurrency? Like, what's the bridge there?
So let me see. Hold on one second. Let me wheel
God.
away.
Oh God.
Oh boy. He's going to take his pants off.
He might.
Actually, he's probably putting pants on.
I don't know if everybody knows what this is. Does everybody know what this is that listens?
No, people will not. First of all, they can't hear what you're holding up. You have to explain what that is. It looks to me like a bound book.
For a lot of guests, it's audio only. They're not going to see either one of our handsome faces.
Explain what it is.
Yeah.
I'm going to do the rest of the show in sign language then.
So thanks. The world's best podcast right here.
So obviously being in the firearms industry and creating a smart contract for this pool of investors, right? So every time we mine some Ethereum, it would automatically distribute on a viewable public ledger to your wallet. So if you invested 10%, John and Clint invested 10%, 10% of what was mined that month would automatically go to your wallet. There's no way for anybody to get screwed. That's the way it works for the entire program, right?
So you're buying into a mining facility.
That's basically what it was. Yeah. So the person that did the private equity deal, he was a oil rig type thing. He's raised fund for that. He's like, it's the same shit, right? He's like, you got this, it's producing, these people are getting it. So we produced that smart contract. So that way everybody knew they were getting paid. You can go in on that contract. You can see who got paid what. You can see everything. Well, that got my ADD brain spinning on that bound book. Do you want me to hold it up again so people can listen to me hold it?
Yeah. Hold it up so we can hear.
Really effective. It's maximum effort.
So the bound book has always kind of blown my mind in this industry. And
tell us what the bound book is for those of us who don't know, Dave.
Actually, you know what? I'll explain it. It's where all of the data on firearms for a manufacturer or a dealer is kept. So if I were to receive a firearm from a manufacturer, I would have to write down all this given information that ATF requires. And these guys have to do that sort of thing when they create, when they dispose of one, and meaning send it to somebody or receive one. It's the same thing. So, it's a acquisition and disposition book. That's what it's called.
But to break it down to stupid 1940s process, right? I am going down to my CNC machine. I am pulling off a lower. I'm putting part number 1, 2, 3 on this lower. And then I'm going to mail you a piece of paper, John, with that lower. And you're going to get it in and you're going to write inside of your piece of paper book that you have that, right?
Yeah.
And you got the copy of my piece of paper, right?
Yeah.
So this is like, in my mind, like super archaic. So there's got to be a better way to do this. It's a pain in the ass for the guys down on the floor, upstairs. You got different sets of books. So on Ethereum, we created basically on the blockchain, the bound book. At the time we did that, the ATF was like, nah, we kind of like this book thing. It's neat and it's worked real well for us. Fast forward a few years and you have Fastbound. And I think there's another company out there, but Fastbound had the largest market share in making life very easy for manufacturers, for FFLs to operate and do business. Now they offer more than just the bound book. They have some internal shop management, ERP type systems, things like that. But that was kind of the green light from the ATF that this is okay to be able to manufacture inside of this software, send it out and do everything that you normally would do with this shitty book from the 1940s, right? Now it's going to be done on a private, unhackable, irrefutable public ledger. I seen your head turn.
Well, I think the terminology, and this is a problem with cryptocurrency in general. The terminology is, and this was one of the first things I said to you, is completely made the fuck up.
Yeah.
We
I wish
just
I
like
could've made it up.
arbitrarily
Yeah,
started
yeah.
naming things.
Yeah.
Some nerd in a basement that invented all this crap or came up with it just started naming things. So when you say blockchain and you say it's stored and it's unhackable, what the fuck does that mean?
I mean, so like Bitcoin runs on SHA 256 algorithm. So that's like,
Oh, here we go. Here we
never
go.
mind.
Listen to that.
My brain hurts.
Yeah. Fuck.
So
Yeah.
yeah. So basically what how we made this is a graphic user interface, a GUI, right?
Mhm.
That the consumer will be able to get into and use the bound book so simple it will look just like regular Web 2, which is our current technology, but it will be on Web 3.
Okay. What is Web 3?
That is blockchain. So
Okay.
everything that you see in my mind, and I've said this for years, I think people will use this and they won't even know that it's not just a cloud-based software. It's irrefutable and unhackable, and you can get to it on any browser, very similar to a cloud base. But I think like Clint's been asking some questions about like an XRP and like all these other cryptocurrencies that are, have these armies behind them that are now pushing these transactions. And people that don't understand it tell me, well, nobody's going to fucking use that. And I'm like, I think you're already using a lot of it. You just don't know it. So right now, obviously I need a haircut. I'm going to go look at that shit. What just happened? I'm going to go get a haircut. I'm going to swipe my card and money's going to come out of my bank account. Right. How does that work right now, John?
Magic.
Exactly. So now we put in XRP to do the transactions, or XLM, one of these cryptocurrencies that's made to do.
Okay, so XRP and what was the other one you said?
XLM, Stellar
These
Lumens.
are both individual cryptocurrencies currently.
Correct.
Okay.
So they can process like, was it 100,000 times the transactions a Visa or MasterCard it can per second, and it's way cheaper.
How the fuck is that? Like what's fascinating to me about that, what you just said, is that Visa or MasterCard hasn't kind of bogarted that.
Oh, they're going to just join up and continue to charge you.
Yeah.
Right. But what I'm suggesting is that, like, how have they not offered somebody gobs and gobs of money to make their jobs easier and better? That's fascinating. So this is what it sounds like to me in my kind of current understanding of cryptocurrency as a whole, because I think it's important for the audience that's listening that may not know. Cryptocurrency almost sounds like it's undermining, and I don't mean mining in the same way. It's undermining the financial structure of the world.
Yes.
Is that accurate?
You are bypassing the banks essentially, right?
Well, more than that, Dave, you're bypassing the government that controls those banks. You're bypassing the, dare I say, deep state. So
okay. So
I'm
this
of
is
sound mind and state, and I'm not suicidal. Thanks for throwing that in there, Clint.
how much have you given to the Clinton Foundation? I'm kidding.
What I was kind of getting at with that, John, is so I'm still getting my haircut. I'm still swiping my card. Something's happening in the background right now. Most people do not understand, right?
Of course.
And now say they transition to, instead of using Swift, they're using an XRP or another cryptocurrency, and you're still going to swipe your card and it's still going to come out of your account. Same thing with this bound book, right? Like if somebody logs into Fastbound, which has a huge market share, and I go, I'm going to transfer John this gun in Fastbound. I click. It sends it to you. That transaction's done. Do you know how that works?
I mean, on a vague level, yes, but
so essentially, it's going to be the same thing, but more secure and irrefutable. And like I said, it's unhackable. Quantum computing that they've came out with still can't hack it. One of the things, I don't know how nerdy you want me to get, but we built this out on Base. So this is a layer 2 on Ethereum.
Okay.
So
this is that is going to
good grief.
So what I'm attempting to do, Dave, is make sure that people that have no fucking clue what you're talking about have some level of understanding.
Yeah.
And when you throw out built something on Base,
it's a blockchain on top of Ethereum.
So we have Ethereum, which is considered a level 1, right? This is like
it
the
is
bottom of like there's like a I'm trying to think of how to explain this. This is like the foundation of cryptocurrency, correct?
for their chain, yes. And then there's a ton of cryptocurrencies that are wrote on like an ERC20 token or things like that that are wrote off of Ethereum. That's why Ethereum has a very nice high value. But to transact on that, if I built this glorified spreadsheet on top of Ethereum and I went to do a transaction and went to do send this gun through the life of this gun, it might cost $12. So
Okay.
Base is a layer 2 that utilizes that blockchain technology at a fraction of the cost. So that same amount of transactions through the life of this firearm might cost 3 cents, which makes this much more manageable, much cheaper than the credit card fees that would go process to process as well when you get into payment aspects as well.
So when you say, using the example of a firearm, when you say the life cycle of this firearm, you're talking about it transfers from manufacturer to dealer, dealer to individual, and then potentially elsewhere if that happens. Is that what you're referencing? I'm
No.
not sure I'm tracking.
It stops at the dealer.
Okay. So when that's 2 transactions, when I think of what this could be, I start to spin with the possibilities. What's the intent with like what problem are we solving with this blockchain bound book? Like what is the perfect version of that? What are we getting as a community? Like the gun community, what do we get out of that existing?
Customers or FFLs? I mean, FFLs and manufacturers, liabilities, audits, when they come swinging your door and you have a set of books downstairs of a machine, you have them set up here, you have an outsourced set of books, you know what I mean? It creates this whole clusterfuck of potential mistakes, right? So it really limits your exposure to the ATF to work in a software like this. And makes it way quicker to be able to find your things instead of us manually going through pulling 4 sets of books. It's 0.2 seconds to hit a button and know exactly where that firearm is, if it was destroyed, all that stuff. That's just internally. Now you fast that onto the dealers that I'm manufacturing my product, right? Just our lowers. So now you get to like a distributor or a dealer that's got 2 guys kind of trying to run the show, trying to deal with straw purchases and all the other bullshit at the counter. They can focus on their business instead of tracking down. Do you want me to hold that book up again? Loud enough. So instead of having multiple pages of these, I mean, can you imagine the number of firearms that come into a decent sized dealer and how much bullshit tracking they have to do and finding things and figuring shit out with a paper system and so-and-so didn't send their FFL. I mean, it's just stupid shit you have to deal with hours and hours on and to make it super simple and be able to log in and click a button in 2 seconds, know what's going on.
I will point out for the people listening that ATF does not define how to do this process clearly. There's multiple ways to do it. I think they have like a couple quote unquote recommendations, but in general terms, ATF does not like hard answers on things. They don't like concrete answers.
Ever.
They love living in this gray area. So the idea is to just make the record keeping more simplistic for business owners. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And the phrasing you were using was it's going to be like this is coming. What does that mean? Like, is this so Fastbound already exists? What's the plan to connect it with this cryptocurrency idea?
Well, John, I'm glad you asked.
I'm good at this.
So Fastbound had been on a conference call. There's a lot of people that are in the industry that know the conversations that Clint and I are having with higher level manufacturers, people that want product traceability for other reasons. We get into a lot of stuff in our industry that goes beyond just what we talked about with the firearms tracking, right? So if you tell me when I get in the weeds, John.
I will. You're there.
If you land a military contract, right, you have to have domestically milled materials, right? And you have to have all these requirements for this firearm or this firearm, optics, mount, all these products that you are sending turnkey to your end customer, right? So after Fastbound had seen what we were doing when we're having these conversations, I started telling them about these are the features we're going to add onto what you're currently doing, and it's going to be on blockchain. Fastbound came in as a founding partner into Boar and is very excited. So they have really expedited our dev team's level of work because they essentially open up the hood on Tuesday on a conference call on what they're working on, what they wish they would have added to their platform to make it better and have more, they're excited to bring record keeping into the Web3 space, I guess, was exactly how they put it. And also add features like I just talked about for manufacturers' benefit. Also, once that gets, say, it goes over to a special customer someplace, the life of that firearm, they can track that when they go to trade them in. If it's an agency, they go to sell the lot of firearms. Here's all the original certifications for serial numbers 1 through 35, where the origination of the material and all the things that were required when we bought these firearms, right? Serial numbers for all the optics that were $3,000 when we bought them a piece years ago. All that type of information will be put in there as well, making value and tracking on secondhand market for those type of things even better.
Okay, so there's two things that have just come up in this discussion that I think is very important for people to understand, myself included. Earlier, you said this stops at the dealer level. This tracking stops at the dealer level because I think individual privacy when it comes to firearms ownership is super important. Like, it's very, very important to me to have some level of separation from the government. So essentially, once a 4473 is completed, that's it. Like, it gets disposed to individual, and then that's no longer something that is being tracked, correct?
100%. I do not want to be a fucking big brother. I'm a kid at heart. I have those libertarian dreams, and that's my crazy views. So, scratch your head.
No, I'm just...
that's totally against anything that I believe in. And also, just from a liability standpoint, it would be moronic to think you're going to put this together and you're going to build this. That would be stupid.
I agree, and I'm glad you didn't. The other thing is that this question just came to my mind. Who has access to this sort of stuff? Because one of the things I think could be almost, I don't know, interesting is the best word for it, is you mentioned tracking value and things of that nature. And if people could have access to that data, that could be good or bad, I guess. I'm not really sure where I fall on that side of things, like tracking that.
It would be super, super restricted. So you'd have users at your stores, at your manufacturing facilities with approved logins, that type of thing. It's not just going to be out on the public blockchain where you can just, hey, I want to look up this serial number and see the life of this firearm. So all that's going to be completely encrypted. None of that stuff would be available to the general public.
So what about ATF?
ATF, if there was an issue, same thing with like Fastbound. What's the other name of the other software? There's somebody else out there that does something similar. If they have to investigate something, then they can request the record of the transactions, which is requested now through this book. And it takes them, what? I think they said about 8 to 10 months to go through and figure out kind of the life of the firearm and all the bullshit. So this would take, again, about 0.2 seconds to be able to click the button and be able to extract that if that's what's needed.
Okay. And I want to make it very clear that that is required by current law. The ability for the ATF to track things in that way. That is not something that I think a lot of firearms manufacturers would like to be doing, but I think it's important to understand that is part of current law, so it kind of has to be there.
The paperwork.
I know people get very upset about the ATF knowing anything, and when firearms may or may not be used in crimes and things of that nature, they start doing traces, and dealers and manufacturers, unfortunately, have to comply with that bullshit, or are encouraged to comply. I should say that. Okay, so we've got the Fastbound thing being brought up to Web3 to make the transacting in terms of firearms moving between entities more clear. Correct? Is that a very simplistic way to put that?
You're so good.
Okay, so we've got that sort of I don't know, that's like a layer of the sandwich here. Okay, and there are other things going on here, and we kind of alluded to this earlier. Clint, what's this idea? Like, how does this tie into the greater Second Amendment?
Well, that's a good question, John. Glad
I'm glad you asked.
Yeah, no, I like anything to get this fucking nerd to quit talking over here.
Fucking got him.
Golly, Dave.
Got him.
No. All right, a couple things. Number one, we should talk about decentralized as well as part of our, it's one of our buzzwords. Dave, when we come back to you, if you have time after I filibuster here for the next 9 minutes. Here's where this truly benefits the 2A, the industry as a whole. Okay, and people say 2A. I prefer to say pro-constitution because that's exactly what it is. Okay, anyone that's anti-2A is anti-constitution, and so therefore it's easy for me to put them in a compartment of the trunk of my car. When we talked about organizations coming to manufacturers and to civilians, saying, hey, we need money, we're fighting new legislation and so on. We wanted to create effectively a funding mechanism that, when I say works in perpetuity, it's indefinite. In other words, with all these transactions, even though the fees are minimal as opposed to, say, credit card transactions, there's still money being made, okay, through those transactions, the currency being used. That money from those fees, which is very minimal, by the way, then is put into an account, and then we, TUBOR, the board, effectively sits down with the different Pro 2A organizations that we have a relationship with, and we stroke them a check to keep them going. Where we see that being in the future is that it's basically a unlimited and just constant flow of support from the manufacturing side and of course from the consumer side without having to open up your checkbook. Does that make sense?
So this money that is being generated, where does this? You said the fees. Is this the fees for shifting? In the instance of the bound book, that those fees associated with moving that around, that's where this is coming from?
Yeah, any transaction, that's utilizing the TUBOR, utilizing our contract with the blockchain. Dave, how do I describe that?
Yeah, I mean, there's several mechanisms that throw a lever for an event. There's what they call gas. Typically on a cryptocurrency, it's the gas is the fee to make a transaction happen, right? And every time you use that gas, typically what the creators of a cryptocurrency do is they make themselves very wealthy. They take that gas fee. So I'm going to send it to you, and then I'm going to write something on this, and I'm going to build this up. They're going to charge for that. And then say we do payment gateway transaction. Every time one of these levers are pulled, you're creating a fee, right? And those fees add up over the billion coins that are out there, right? Well, will be out there. And then what we're going to do with that is put that aside for 2A organizations. Like Clint said, there's a board of founders on TUBOR that all have NFT. If you want to get into NFTs, we can do that too.
No.
Not today.
No.
Okay.
So
never.
those are the folks that will sit down and figure out, where this is headed, what we want to get into next, and also, where those funds are directed to. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
So we are the attempt here is to have this technology that is built upon the crypto coin known as Ethereum. We're using this technology that Tubor has created on top of this to fund, hopefully in perpetuity, the Second Amendment causes, fighting back, basically. And the way that is done in a current basic level would be through the generation of these fees of transacting, just moving guns around the country. That is really interesting as a whole. Just like, and I understand that, like, obviously I have a little bit of prior knowledge to what's going on here, but I think that concept by itself is very fascinating. One of the more interesting things is that there are other ideas here, right? Because it is I believe the term is token. There are ways for people to invest in this, and I want to make this very, very fucking clear for people listening. I am not telling you to do this. This is not financial advice. I am not playing that game. We are discussing what is going on here. So keep this in mind. This is just a discussion right now. So people will be able to buy this currency that you're creating, or this token that you're creating, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
And how does that play against the bound book and all that? Like these seem like very, very separate ideas. How does that work together?
Trying to think how to make this very simple.
How do we dumb this one down? It's complicated.
I mean, so it's almost conceptually like a value will go up based on. Okay, let me back up about 3 more steps. So anytime over the years when someone has asked me, what do you look for before you buy a cryptocurrency? What are the most important things you look for? You look for a technology, right? Is there something that this project does that is needed in the world, period, right? Is it going to disrupt an industry? 2, 3, who's the team behind it, right? Have these people experienced success before? Vortex is one of the board member companies, the founders, right? So those guys have done pretty well for themselves, I'd say. So is everyone else that's on it.
I've heard of Vortex.
What's that company again? How do you pronounce that?
Vortex, Bortix, Vortex.
Vortex.
And then circulating supply and a lot of these other small things that we don't really want to get into. So I guess you could liken it to, you're going to be purchasing this token, right? And this would almost be like your shares in the technology of Tabor if it was a traditional type investment.
Well, we have to speak in terms of traditional because the gun industry as a whole is traditional.
Okay.
For
Like
sure.
when we look at it, like we're not walking around with cutting edge technology, despite what these companies would like to tell you. This is like 100-year-old technology in our pants.
You know about Haro-san?
I don't know what that is.
Hollow-san. Yeah, you
Oh,
come on.
I feel like that's a little racist. I feel like a little. I mean, they got the slave children. I'm kidding. This is not. I haven't been able to prove that. I'm joking.
So John, real quick,
you
touch on
please.
something that honestly is probably the most important discussion item of this topic. Okay. And that is, who makes up our industry? Who are we? And understand that, months ago, I've invested in Bitcoin and such, over the years, not to the level that Dave has, but more, Robinhood. I just want to see what this thing does. It's more like a slot machine to me. It's difficult, right, to think about, okay, wait a minute. I'm a gun guy. Here, I'm gonna turn my screen. Likes to have access to their shit.
He's
Okay?
touching guns right now if you're listening.
Yeah, touching guns. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry for those of you who don't have eyes.
Show him the
and
bound book.
ears. Yeah, let me show
That'll
the
get
bound
'em.
book. And I like tangible assets. And for a guy who's a prepper like myself, by the way, there are certain links that I've gone to make sure that I have access to my things that are going to, keep me alive in the event that the world gets turned on its ear. Okay. That being said, crypto and Bitcoin is one of those things, because right now we have a currency that can be, and is manipulated by our government.
Daily.
Okay. Every day. Okay. We know this because we've all experienced the last 4 years of, a president that's been printing money like it's going out of style. And that means that this dollar that I'm holding on to, I've got in my safe, whatever, continues to devalue.
I mean, I would
You can't-
argue this has been going on for decades.
It's been going on. Well, it's been going on for forever, but when we got rid of the gold standard, when Nixon got rid of the gold standard, really was a hyper moment of, okay, there is no control. We have no idea who is now controlling this anymore. Okay. And I would argue, well, I don't want to get into that discussion, but what's important to know is that crypto, Bitcoin, whatever, is the next form of global currency. It cannot be controlled or manipulated by government. It can't. Now, there might be some crazy extremists that are saying, well, Bitcoin was actually created by the CIA. That's bullshit. Okay. I give our government credit for a lot of things. That is not one that they're capable of. Okay. Especially when they've spent literally the last, 2 decades fighting against this uprise of this, because they're afraid that the people are going to stop using the dollar. Okay. So what I would encourage people to do on their own is start looking into crypto and Bitcoin on your own. Okay. And look at the benefits of it and how that can be beneficial to you. No government oversight gets my attention in a hurry. Okay. No government manipulation gets my attention in a hurry. They can't see my transactions when I make them. Bank of America is not going to send my transactional that, they can send my transactional history now. They've been doing it, right? They can't do it off the blockchain. They can't get into that. Decentralized. Okay. And I want people to look into that. Okay. Because this is the next form of currency. And by the way, there have been multiple forms of currency throughout history. Okay. So I feel like, John, like this, we should almost do like a, crypto Bitcoin 101, discussion. I really would like the listeners to ask questions, honestly, like send us questions after they've heard this. I'll give you John's cell phone number. You can text him directly.
I swear to
those
fuck, I
questions.
will fucking choke you.
He
At
only answers
any
the ones.
hour. At any hour, he never sleeps.
He
Okay.
only answers the ones that have feet pick attached. Feet pick.
But I would like it to be interactional because it's so fucking confusing, right? Even after Dave has explained this to me numerous times, there's still areas where I'm kind of, I just don't get it. Okay. And by the way, I'm one of the founders, right? And I'm still kind of going, I don't understand this thing. Okay. I don't understand this blockchain. And I'm looking for ways that I can say, hey, Dave, well, what if there was a computer chip that could process information at a phenomenal amount of rate? Couldn't they hack into the blockchain? I'm looking for those threats all the time because that's how my mind works, right? But at the end of the day, I've made a lot of money off of Bitcoin and such, and I don't know shit about it. Okay, just by making simple investments here and there. So I really feel like, if you'd be willing, John, that, in the future, like we do more of these sessions so we can kind of break it down. But I'd really like to do a Q&A, to be as open and transparent on the subject as we can be.
Yeah, I
Because
mean, I encourage as much as possible. I encourage our audience to ask questions in the comments sections wherever they're doing this. You can shoot me an email. It's theguncollective@gmail.com. You can
Yeah.
contact me,
yeah,
and we can, if we get enough questions, we'll absolutely do this again.
yeah, that'd be great. That'd be fantastic. Dave, what do you think? Got your closing thoughts?
Oh, I mean, I was going to get into a payment gateway and all the other stuff that we're going to be working on, but I think that I probably puked so much shit that
Well, I think I don't think you shouldn't be upset because we only have a certain amount of time, and it's important to lay the foundation of understanding here
Yeah.
because this is not an easy project to understand.
Yeah.
No.
I aggressively threw questions at these guys when I was sort of brought in to start working on some of it, and I still do that all the time because I go, well, what the fuck about this? What about that?
Yeah.
This guy's saying this, the world is a very difficult place to live in sometimes, and I think trying to find trustworthy people and understand things like this is not the easiest.
Yeah, and I appreciate you asking questions to break it down, because just like when I was saying earlier about everybody shitting on everybody in the industry, in the firearms industry, for asking questions, I always appreciate the questions. I just have a really hard time explaining them because I've been doing this so long in a bite-sized piece. So I appreciate you asking those questions. But to jump off kind of my end thing where Clint's going into, things are going to shift. There's going to be some type of currency that's a little bit different. In the second round of COVID bills, there was actually a draft that had a digital dollar in there to be able to fight the inflation, right? We're going to peg it to something different. No place in history has had something that's not tied to anything of value, keep value, and stay in power in the history of the world, right? So when you bring up devalue, we unpegged it from the gold standard, right? And look what's happened since. I think something's going to happen. I know the new administration, Pete Hoekstra, he's I think he's a senator here in Michigan. He was out checking out the machine shop when we were doing the cryptocurrency project, and he was on Trump's cryptocurrency committee at the time. Really didn't know much about it. Nobody did. So I took him over to the mine. He got all hot and sweaty with me. It was great. But his mind was kind of blown how
And then you went to the mine.
His mind was kind of blown on how all this stuff works. And he's very pro crypto. I know you've seen Trump while he was campaigning talking about, paying for, stuff with cheeseburgers, I think he bought with Bitcoin and, things like that. And his administration's talking about creating that strategic reserve in cryptocurrencies. So basically the government's holding assets that appreciate in value instead of shitting the bed. So we'll see where it goes. I personally think the government fucks up everything they touch. So we'll see where it goes.
Yeah, we shall see. We shall see. Is there anything else that you guys want to say before we have to roll? Clint, do you have anything else, brother?
I would just say, listen, you're going to hear Tubor Coin. You're going to hear this quite a bit coming up in the next several weeks. We launched January 13th, right prior to SHOT Show. Look into it. Just look into it on your own. Go to the website, check it out. If you have questions that you want to ask us directly, you can go straight to the website and ask questions there. Look into the founders of the coin. As Dave was saying, we have, we received a pretty high rating for this, Dave. What's the name of that organization that gave us our 100
safeguard? So we came out at 100%. Positive rating, so that's the best you can get, and that very rarely happens.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is all the things that I brought up earlier, John, where the founders dox themselves, right? A lot of times you don't know who's behind these projects, you don't know what they've done in the past. I mean, they know my mother's maiden name, for Christ's sake.
Yeah. So, an organization is as transparent as we can be. Just ask questions. That's it. Get to know, educate yourself on Bitcoin and crypto in general. And this is ahead of its time, I believe. And someday it'll be funny to look back on this and go, geez, what were we, why do we have to explain anything? Because this will just become all such a normal thing. But for a guy like myself who still uses cash to pay for things, it's different. So look into it. Yeah.
Well, everybody out there listening, watching, etc., I would love to hear some feedback on this. I mean, for me personally, I live and breathe on the communication between you and I. And I think it's super important for me to understand if you guys have concerns. I'm only a small cog in this wheel, and like I said, I do have some involvement. However, I think my guiding light is you guys, and I am very eager to hear some feedback. If you guys want us to bring these two back on and learn more, we can do that. If you have questions, you can reach out to these guys. How do they get in contact with somebody to try and get some more questions answered? What's the website?
Tuborcoin.com.
And that's TUE.
Yes, correct.
BOR.
Correct.
Got it. Awesome. That's the where to go, tuborcoin.com. And I think it's important that we talk about our sponsors one more time. Go to Vertex, VERTX.com. Use code TGC. Get yourself a discount. I have been rocking their brand new backpack. I can't remember what the hell it's called, but it's really good. A little tan jobby. It's so freaking cool. They've got an armor panel in it. Yes, there's a spot for armor. I think the Vertex bags are some of the best bags out there. I travel with them all the damn time. I'm not even kidding. It's in my van. It's in my car. It's in everything. I sometimes wear their pants too because I like their pants quite a bit.
I got their everyday carry little tactical fanny pack, that sling one that's made in the U.S.
Yeah.
I think I got my pistol in there and 6 mags, a medical kit, a karambit. I mean, it fits so much shit, and it's literally like that big.
See, guys, it's not just me. It's not just me. Use the code TGC at VERTX.com. I would appreciate it. Also, go to Excise Sites. Get yourself some good backup sites, some iron sights. For those that don't like optics, I mean, how many of you guys harass me in the comments about how you're an old fuck and you don't like an optic on your gun? Go get some Excise Sights. I promise you will not regret it. TGC is the code. I think you save up to 20%, sometimes more. It's wonderful. XSsites.com. Dave, Clint, thank you for being here. I appreciate you boys. This was a really interesting. I feel like we just scratched the surface, and I appreciate the effort. There's a lot more to talk about. As always, guys out there listening, watching, we'll see you soon.
Thanks, John.
Thanks,
Dave.